I want to say, in the interest of transparency, two members of the Deadline White House family have been name-checked by Donald Trump. One is Mark Elias, who will join us in the next hour. The other is Andrew Weissmann, about whom he seems to not have a specific critique. He just clearly catches a lot of your appearances on television. Andrew Weissmann, any thoughts?
Well, you know, I think that the president is not a fan of career people at the department, and I think that's where that emanates from. And I think what you're seeing with Liz's incredible story and bearing witness to it is a firsthand account of what happens when a career person speaks up and adheres to the rule of law. And I am so grateful that we have people like you, Liz, to do that. You're an extremely good company. I know there are lots of people who cheer you on inside and outside the department. You're joined by Danielle Sassoon, the former head of the Southern District of New York, by Denise Chung, the former chief of the Criminal Division, numerous members of the Public Integrity Section. And those are just the sort of public examples. You know as well as anyone just how much the career people are apolitical and just do their job. And one of the things I was struck by in your story is you're talking about the concern now of career people voicing those views and the concern about even saying anything, and even, I mean, the idea that you would feel any reluctance to talk about what would happen if we put firearms in the hands of somebody who has a history of violence is sends chills down your spine. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about what you know about sort of the atmosphere in the department as somebody who was just recently there.
Yeah, the atmosphere is really just night and day from what it typically would be in the Department of Justice. I'm sure you know, Andrew, that conversations in meetings of DOJ component heads and senior officials are generally animated discussions, free-ranging conversation. People are often fighting for airtime because these are highly successful lawyers who have a lot to say on a lot of different issues, and they're all interested in trying to make decisions or trying to ensure that the leadership of the department is making decisions based on complete information and multiple perspectives. That has all gone away, evaporated entirely. I mean, in meetings, people are taking the seat in the back of the room. They're shrinking as far from the person running the meeting as possible, and they are quiet. The meetings are deafeningly quiet because people are afraid to speak up. They're afraid to be called out. They're afraid to be called on. They're afraid to say what they really think. I spoke with a senior colleague who expressed the view that essentially the only acceptable answer right now when somebody asks you to do something in the department is yes. You can try to say yes and or yes but if your answer doesn't start with yes, it's not going to be well received. And that is a really scary place to be in an institution entrusted with making extremely high stakes decisions about our public safety and our national security.
Vaughn, I want to bring you into this because you're there covering this for us with some of what the New York Times and our own team is flagging for us as pretty aggressive attacks on the media. Donald Trump said this, quote, "I believe that CNN and MSDNC, who literally write 97.6, not sure where he gets that figure, % bad about me, are political arms of the Democrat Party. In my opinion, they're really corrupt and they're illegal. What they do is illegal. It makes no difference how big a victory I had. I can have the biggest victory in history. It makes no difference what kind of failure the other side has. These people are going to go after me. It has to be illegal," he goes on to say. One more note that we're seeing in the print coverage, Vaughn, that I'd love for you to tell me about is that New York Times journalists have reported on some enthusiasm and cheering in the room for some of the attacks Donald Trump lobbed against the investigations into him. Tell us more.
Right. I've actually been listening for the last 45 minutes in the ear here, and I'm going to take that out for the moment. I think the part about this that you just referenced is part of a conversation that we've had, Nicole, was the extent to which now President Trump, in these first 53 days in office, needed to be public and audible about what he wanted from his Department of Justice. For 2 years, he ran on the campaign trail indicating what, if he were to get back in the White House, he'd want prosecutors in his Department of Justice as well as the FBI to do. 53 days into this administration here in the halls of the Department of Justice, the president has been explicit in his directives to the prosecutors that are in that room, and as you noted, who have cheered throughout his remarks here. This is not behind the scenes, without cameras running directives, but instead it is a clear, audible call for them to investigate not only journalists. To expand on what you said, it wasn't just CNN and MSNBC, but also the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, ABC, and CBS, in which he said about them, quote, "It's totally illegal what they do." And here's the part. I just hope you can all watch for it. But it's totally illegal. These people are going to go after me. This is an expansion on when he was talking about the election, the 2020 election in the room. He said, quote, "The election was totally rigged. Quote, the people who did this to us should go to jail." And then you mentioned individuals, including Andrew Weissman, who have caught the attention of him over these years. There were numerous names that he mentioned, and he said, quote, "These are bad people, they're corrupt and illegal." He then went on to talk about the role that the prosecutors actually play in this. He said, quote, "We will expel the rogue forces and corrupt actors. We will expose their crimes and conduct. It's going to be legendary. And it'll be legendary for those who expose it." Again, it'll be legendary for those who expose it. The words from the President of the United States inside of the Department of Justice to a room full of prosecutors and staff who are now 53 days in serving at his direction.
Juan Hilliard, what strikes you as most notable? Maggie Haberman has pointed out that it is how emboldened he clearly feels.
In what he wants. I think, Nicole, here, I think our role as journalists for so long through, generations of journalists that have come before us. And I think, it hits at the heart of Watergate. It hits at even the first impeachment proceedings of then President Trump in 2019, were conversations that happened not out in public or for journalists to have access to, but it took reporters, having an understanding, having sourcing about the directives that were coming from the executive office of the president. And instead, what you have here on this March 15th day is Donald Trump making it very clear what he wants out of his prosecutors. I should also note, he mentioned the fact that Chuck Grassley, who is the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, is there sitting in the room. And the likes of Michael Flynn, who folks will recall, he pardoned back in his first administration after Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his conversations with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. And this also comes at a time in which I've had multiple conversations, and I know a great many others in our newsroom have as well, about concerns about corruption and illegal activities that take place by any of the numerous departments or agencies, not just the actual White House, but the departments and agencies. And if the Department of Justice is unwilling to investigate or prosecute those within the greater executive branch, then who is actually going to be held to account? I saw 17 inspector generals be terminated by the president of the United States in his first week in office. And so I think this stems a lot of questions when you see the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, stand there at the top of her remarks. And while talking about Donald Trump, she was very specific about saying he was the greatest president in history. He will never stop fighting for us, and we will never stop fighting for him. Those were the words of the Attorney General, Pam Bondi.
It's just such a long cry, Basil, from Don McGahn's memos as revealed through the work of the Mueller investigation in the first term, where Don McGahn clearly was putting into written memos, along with the help of his then chief of staff, Annie Donaldson, notes about how to make sure that Trump wouldn't be impeached or charged. Right. I mean, there was such cognizance of how outside the bounds, not just of norms, but of legal conduct Trump was by his first legal team. The Don Miguel's and the Emmett Floods, not to lionize any of them in the annals of sort of normal political history or White House history, but compared to this, where it's completely brazen and public, replacing the rule of law with Trump's political hit list is breathtaking.
It is, and he got up at that podium and said, "It's not about we, it is about me." That's what he said. This is all about me. This is my department. This is my government. Let me just do 30 seconds on something that Elizabeth said in terms of what happened with Mel Gibson, because I think this actually bears speaking out loud.
You got more than 30 seconds.
Yeah, well,
you waited a half an hour.
If you talk to a lot of local police officers, they'll tell you that domestic calls are some of the most dangerous that they will ever face.
And the most frequent.
And the most frequent. The emotions are high, and there's access to a weapon, whether it's a knife or a gun. So for the Justice Department, Trump's Justice Department, to say, we're going to give Mel Gibson this gun back, you're not only endangering the lives of his partner or spouse, whatever the case is, you're putting the lives of the children, if there are any in the house, in danger. And the police officers, the law enforcement that enter that house or edifice, whatever it is, you're putting their lives in danger. I wonder if police unions across the country are going to be stepping in to say, this is not a good idea. I doubt it, but I hope that actually happens. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, what's so scary is that students are being disappeared off of college campuses, right, with seemingly reckless abandon. That you have a sitting president who has closed down the enforcement mechanisms of multiple departments across government, education, AID, other agencies. But he will take a moment to stand at the Department of Justice and say, this department here is mine. I'm going to take everybody out that I don't like, replace them with the people I do want, so that all of the enforcement that occurs is at my direction. This is what folks have been talking about for a long time, for years to come. And now he's sealed the deal. And I don't know what it would take for people who, if there are any on the fence right now, to get off the fence, but this should scare you.